Barack Hussein Obama served as the 44th President of the United States from 2009 to 2017. During his presidency, he dealt with many domestic and foreign challenges. Setting the scene of Obama's presidency was the devastating stock market crash of 2008. The 2008 financial crisis began with a booming housing industry. How could so many people suddenly buy houses? The answer is ninja loans. Ninja stands for no income, no job, and no assets. To give someone in this demographic a loan is a terrible decision on the bank's part. I mean, have you seen the kind of paperwork and liability you normally need to fill out in order to get a loan? But banking companies, like any company, were trying to raise their profit, and giving out more loans did just that. Because of ninja loans, average people, probably with subprime credit, could take massive loans to buy houses. How did the economy get tied up into this? Because of this booming industry, a new form of investment became popular: mortgage-backed securities, or MBSs. Thousands of investors started piling onto this new offer.
You smell that? What is that?
What?
What's that smell?
A cologne?
No?
Opportunity.
No. Money.
Okay.
You smell money.
Okay.
This is your basic mortgage bond.
Here's where things start going downhill. When people couldn't pay for their mortgages because the banks were literally giving $100,000 loans to $30,000 annual income borrowers, the now heavily invested mortgage-backed securities became toxic assets because the borrowers weren't paying back their mortgages, which mortgage-backed security investments relied on. Banks reacted to this by not lending out any money and creating a credit freeze. This wiped out $7 trillion of shareholder wealth. In comes Obama. To combat this, Obama signed the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, or the ARRA, on February 19th of 2009. This act made general tax cuts, $400 for individuals and $800 for families, and targeted tax cuts, such as an $8,000 tax credit to new home buyers throughout 2009. In addition to this, since this was Obama's first major act, he also included large steps towards items further ahead on his agenda, such as healthcare, by subsidizing essential medical services with a total of $114 billion. I'm sure we have all heard of Obamacare at least once in our lives. It was arguably Obama's most ambitious move as a president, and it's had quite a run. Obamacare is officially known as the Affordable Care Act, or the ACA. It was passed by the Obama administration in March of 2010. Essentially, Obamacare made it mandatory for anyone not under a health insurance plan by their employer to have one of the many government-subsidized plans made available. Federal health assistance before Obamacare consisted of just Medicare, usually for very old people, or Medicaid, which is federal health care only for very low-income citizens. Obamacare gave health insurance tax credits to citizens who are 1 to 4 times above the federal poverty line, which usually clocks in between $10,000 and $15,000 for an employed citizen. This opens up federal health care to a much larger group of Americans. For example, in 2020, the maximum income for a citizen to still receive tax credits under Obamacare was $47,520, and for a family, it was $97,200. Additionally, Obamacare stopped insurance companies from denying users coverage because of pre-existing conditions. I mean, it's pretty good law if you ask me.
So do you go to any websites that are .coms or .nets, or do you mainly just stick with .govs?
No, actually, we go to .govs. Have you heard of healthcare.gov?
Here we go. Okay, let's get this out of the way. What did you come here to plug?
Well, first of all, I think it's fair to say that I wouldn't be with you here today if I didn't have something to plug. Have you heard of the Affordable Care Act?
Oh yeah, I heard about that. That's the thing that doesn't work. Why would you get the guy?
Obamacare was very controversial. First of all, nobody totally understood it. Its sections and regulations totaled up to over 20,000 pages. Some people that thought they understood it, such as the Tea Party protesters, believed it was a violation of the Constitution to be financially penalized for healthcare. The issue gained so much attention that it was eventually brought to the Supreme Court. It barely made it out alive with a 5-4 win in 2012. According to the majority opinion written by Chief Justice Roberts, the Affordable Care Act's requirement that certain individuals pay financial penalty for not obtaining health insurance may reasonably be characterized as tax. Because the Constitution permits such a tax, It is not our role to forbid it. Sadly, in 2017, however, the new tax bill passed under the Trump administration removed the tax mandate for the ACA, meaning it is no longer mandatory for citizens to have some form of health insurance. Obamacare is still in effect, but it has lost its impact as a progressive new leap for the US. America is therefore still without universal coverage.
We are now going to evaluate Obama's foreign policy regarding China and Syria. Some of the pros include that Obama ended the war in Iraq, and as the US shifted its China policy from a focus on bilateral cooperation to a more regional approach, it gave priority to stability in the region and rejected China's regional assertiveness. China's growing military and economic might have shifted the strategic environment for the US president to forge a strategy that is both cooperative and competitive. However, some cons include that he had a failure to halt an alarming increase in deportations, he had a failure to take bold action on climate change on a global scale as promised, and additionally, he failed to articulate an alternative to market fundamentalism, which undermined the credibility of his ideology and its supporters. We are now going to talk about his success in China. President Obama has had to forge an engagement policy that includes cooperative and competitive approaches while adjusting to the new set of strategic circumstances arising from China's growing economic and military clout. The administration recognizes the importance of addressing various bilateral and international challenges, such as climate change in North Korea. They also wanted to strengthen the U.S. commitment to Asia. The new administration's emphasis on the cooperative dimension of the relationship between U.S. and China was evidenced by its early contacts with the country's leaders. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton noted that the relationship should be based on mutual interest and mutual respect. The new administration followed through on its interest in fostering the cooperative dimension of the U.S.-China relationship. President Obama initiated early contact with Hu Jintao, and Hillary Clinton, the Secretary of State at the time, was in China within 2 weeks after the inauguration. In her first major speech, she stressed the commitment to pursuing a positive relationship with China and its importance in addressing areas of common concern and shared opportunities. These gestures led to an uptick in exchanges. In sidebar meetings at the G20 gathering in London, Obama and Hu agreed to initiate the Strategic and Economic Dialogue, a broad-gauge intergovernmental mechanism led by Secretaries Clinton and Gaither. The phrase positive, cooperative, and comprehensive was chosen as the new code words to describe the desired relationship. A parade of senior administration representatives made their way to Beijing to confer on issues such as climate change, the issues of Afghanistan, Pakistan, North Korea, financial recovery, and Sudan. The administration was also quick off the mark in moving to translate its Pan-Asia priorities into a broader regional strategy. To show its interest in reaching out to ASEAN and Southeast Asia, Secretary Clinton called on the ASEAN headquarters in Jakarta during her first trip to Asia in February of 2009. The United States signed the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation with ASEAN. They initiated regular summit meetings with ASEAN leaders, signaled its interest in participating in the East Asia Summit, and joined the negotiations on the Trans-Pacific Partnership Free Trade Agreements. The president's trips to Asia in 2014 highlighted the administration's dual-tack policy on China and the region. While in the region in April, he visited 4 countries, all of which were treaty allies. His outreach to the region's emerging partners and traditional allies served as a reminder of the U.S. commitment to maintaining a balanced approach to China. In November of 2014, President Barack Obama visited Beijing during his first trip to China. He talks with President Xi Jinping yielded numerous agreements on topics ranging from climate change to counterterrorism. The interplay agreements on topics ranging from climate change and China's growing military and economic strength, and how might the U.S. cooperative and competitive policies be continued to develop in 2015. A series of high-level meetings between the two countries' leaders in 2015 culminated in a successful climate change agreement. Despite this, China and the U.S. still have disagreements on various issues, such as maritime disputes. Reports on China's land reclamation projects in the South China Sea prompted the U.S. to take a tougher stand. In response, the State Department released a legal analysis that rejected Beijing's claims and expressed concerns about the impact of the projects on international law. The tougher words were matched by increased efforts to improve security cooperation and diplomatic pressure. In April, the leaders of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations singled out China for criticizing its actions in the region's maritime disputes. The ongoing pattern of cooperation and hedging in President Obama's policies demonstrate that the inherent competition in the U.S.-China relationship has not abated. The situation highlights the need to consider the implication of this complicated relationship for long-term US-China relations. The continuous pattern of cooperation and hedging by President Barack Obama shows that the US-China relationship remains a competitive one. This relationship complexity can be seen in the various policies pursued by the two countries. However, there is a failure in the international policies within Syria. In 2013, President Barack Obama pressured Syria to agree to give up its weapons of mass destruction. Russia and Iran secretly maintained up to half of the country's stockpile. The West's goal should be to convince Assad to abandon his WMDs. The various agencies and bodies exposed by the US were all part of a single network. Most of them had remained intact and functional up to that point. However, they failed to make Syria give up realistically, as the Syrian regime still holds the weapons. However, this is not entirely the Obama administration's fault. The OPCW inspectors' failure to do their jobs meant no need for US intervention. However, the Syrian regime still managed to prevent inspectors from visiting specific locations by claiming they were too dangerous due to civil war and confrontations with ISIS and rebel forces. It would have no effect on the US's decision to launch a military strike against Syria. Instead, the regime used various other means to secure its chemical weapons stockpile. Therefore, it may not be as entirely Obama's administration's fault. It was likely to happen anyways. Lastly, we will be evaluating Obama's NSA and domestic surveillance. This is a showcase between Presidential Policy Directive 19 and Edward Snowden. Obama states that Snowden is not a patriot, as you can see in the following clip.
No, I don't think Mr. Snowden was a patriot. As I said in my opening remarks, I called for a thorough review of our surveillance operations before Mr. Snowden made these leaks. My preference, and I think the American people's preference, would have been for a lawful, orderly examination of these laws, a thoughtful, fact-based debate that would then lead us to a better place. Mr. Snowden's been charged with 3 felonies. If, in fact, he believes that what he did was right, then, like every American citizen, he can come here, appear before the court with a lawyer, and make his case. If the concern was that somehow this was the only way to get this information out to the public, I signed an executive order well before Mr. Snowden leaked this information that provided whistleblower protection to the intelligence community for the first time. So there were other avenues available for somebody whose conscience was stirred and thought that they needed to question government actions.
However, this is Edward Snowden's take on the stance.
I was required to swear an oath when I entered onto duty in the CIA. It's a very solemn thing. You're in a darkened room in front of a flag. Everyone else is there. But it's important to notice that we did not say an oath of secrecy. One of the common misconceptions and one of the early attacks that you heard a lot in 2013, you don't hear so much anymore, is that I violated this oath of secrecy. That does not exist. There's a secrecy agreement, but there's also an oath of service. And the oath of service is to support and defend not an agency, not even a president. It's to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, and this is a direct quote, foreign and domestic. And so this begs the question, what happens when our obligations come into conflict, right? What happens when you have a secrecy agreement, but you have also witnessed your own government, your own agency, your workplace, violating the rights of Americans and people around the world on a massive scale?
Furthermore, in order to evaluate if Obama is right or wrong, we need to look at John Snowden's intentions.
If your motive had been to harm the United States and help its enemies, or if your motive had been personal material gain, were there things that you could have done with these documents to advance those goals that you didn't end up doing?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, anybody in the positions of access with the technical capabilities that I had could, suck out secrets, pass them on the open market to Russia. They always have an open door, as we do. I had access to, the full rosters of everyone working at the NSA, the entire intelligence community, and undercover assets all around the world, the locations of every station we have, what their missions are, and so forth. If I had just wanted to harm the U.S., that you could shut down the surveillance system in an afternoon. But that's not my intention, and I think for anyone making that argument, they need to think, if they were in my position, and you live a privileged life, you're living in Hawaii in paradise and making a ton of money, what would it take to make you leave everything behind?
As you can see, he has no intentions of causing drama or making money. Now, we look at Obama's second point.
Mr. Snowden's been charged with 3 felonies. If in fact he believes that what he did was right, then like every American citizen, he can come here, appear before the court with a lawyer, and make his case.
To understand this executive order, you need to know President Barack Obama signed an executive order on the 10th of October 2012 for creating new protections for national security and intelligence community whistleblowers, effectively sidestepping a congressional impasse provoked by the reservations of congressional Republicans. The order, formerly known as Presidential Policy Directive 19, was signed out of public view and without a White House announcement. It directs intelligence agencies to establish procedures for the protection of employees reporting waste, fraud, and abuse. However, let's look at the trial designed for Edward Snowden.
But if I'm going to spend the rest of my life in prison, the one bottom line demand that we all have to agree to is that at least I get a fair trial. And that is the one thing the government has refused to guarantee, because they won't provide access to what's called a public interest defense.
But Mr. Snowden, in all due
you and I are talking
respect,
about this right now. Go ahead.
Mr. Snowden, in all due respect, criminals and alleged criminals don't customarily get to decide the terms of their trial. They broke the law and they face the consequences. What makes you different?
As you can see, Presidential Policy Directive 19 does not offer a fair trial. Ultimately, we need to understand that throughout American history, such as Underground Railroads or women's voting, these things were illegal. A slave practicing the basic rights from the Constitution was illegal. It was also illegal for a conductor to help them escape. Thus, the true question is if the intention is right or wrong, not legal or illegal, which Obama failed to acknowledge.